English translation 64th contact, Saturday, 2nd October 1976, 17:18ers.
You really embarrassed me because today we have our group meeting and our meeting room is so crowded that people probably have to sit on the floor.
I have oriented myself about this, but our meeting today is much more important. You have been very impaired in your morale for days as a result of various events.
However, you also know everything.
Sure, I have to supervise such things. But now the thing is, you do not intend to let any information about our existence reach the public in the future.
You have obviously been rummaging through my thoughts again about which you should refrain from doing.
You are wrong, because I have this knowledge from other sources.
Okay, you are right. It is like you say. I find that people are not yet able to understand these issues. In particular, I am guessing those who deal with ufology and make big words, such as Bertossi, Ahrens, Jacob and the Dewist, as well as a super smart guy from America, namely a certain Coleman von Kavitsky from Icofon. This hyper-ufologist has written a very lazy and primitive letter to Mrs. The guy told me that I had hung a model on a fishing rod and filmed and photographed it. And since such brainless idiots claim such things, I think it is completely pointless if we keep trying to educate them about your existence. I do not want to talk about the broad mass of humankind, but about the public sphere of the ufological circles, in which certain idiots want to be omniscient.
You should not get excited because you are experienced enough to know that these things had to come. Besides, you have already had much worse experiences. On the other hand, it is understandable to me if you react in this way, because your realization makes you angry that those who want to be knowing are very ignorant and autocratic in their assumptions and their quite illogical assertions. This is because you see that the way to truth remains very difficult to access for Earth humans. You have quite rightly recognized that it is the so-called ufological circles and communities themselves that make our existence questionable and cast doubt on it. For it is these circles that are guilty of making our existence laughable in the worldwide public arena, and that are today being decried as fantasy and hallucination. This does not mean that all groups work in this manner, but most do. In their lack of understanding and in their ignorance, the erroneously lead ones seek fantastic explanations in technological, paranormal, and purely intellectual areas, whereby the most impossible hypotheses are presented, and indeed also in the form that we are angels and God's messengers, or that we come in evil and world-conquering, as well as with Earth-human abduction, intentions, etc., which of course all corresponds to evil nonsense. In the main, these erroneously lead ones deal with purely sectarian and esoteric parapsychological deficiencies, as well as with the technical possibilities and construction methods of our ships, whereas they completely disregard our important task itself and the associated values, and have no idea of it. This is typical for the human being of the Earth, because he or she always reaches only for the material and completely overlooks the fundamental values, namely the spiritual and consciousness-based ones, about which he or she then makes up unbelievable fantasies, and even claims that jet ships and spaceships, etc., are driven by spiritual forces, and that they are also built according to spiritual models, etc. This is as malicious a misleading claim as the one that we were moving in paranormal realms. The greatest nonsense in this direction is created by those circles, which they call parapsychology circles, etc., which deal with those things and concerns which are incomprehensible to them and which are not understood in the least. And it is precisely these circles that do the most malicious and misleading subversive activities in order to hinder and prevent the finding of the truth, which is only surpassed by those who are supposedly engaged in the purely material form of semi-scientific and fully scientific investigation of the possible existence of our flying machines and ourselves. But their actions are only a delusion, because in reality they are possessed by illogicalness and are still trapped in very material, earthly, and misleading forms of thinking, whereby they are unable to gain any knowledge and accuse anything and everything incomprehensible to them as lies and deception, whereby they feel very great and feel a megalomaniac satisfaction in themselves. This sort also includes von Kavitsky you mentioned, whose stupidity and primitiveness you should not get excited about, and who has no spiritual stable value of any kind, nor any knowledge of us, nor do those who still move in hierarchical or religiously and sectarian recognizing realms and claim that we simply do not know about these things. An assertion that only testifies to the small-mindedness of these people who have not yet recognized themselves and do not possess any real concepts of reality and truth.
You are not saying anything to me that I have not known myself for a long time. For my part, however, I thought that the time was now really ripe to be able to bring the truth to certain circles, which is why we also endeavored to publish articles in public publications, etc., which was not good, because that brought into play those super ufologists who arrogantly and from their own blessedness call themselves scientific researchers, but who in reality are more ignorant and primitive than complete idiots. That is why I do not understand why you have always so insisted that we try to get lectures and articles, etc.
That is very simple. This was our form of testing reality. For several years, the Earth was only observed and recorded by us with regard to these concerns, whereby, unfortunately, in the main, special attention was paid only to certain ufological groups, as you call them. Unfortunately, only the writings of these groups and organizations played a decisive role in this task, because they were generally used for evaluation. This looked quite good and brought good values. As a result of the provision that we must not analyze the life forms in their innermost concerns, however, we were unable to recognize that the manner of thinking of the Earth humans are extremely complicated and illogical, so they are able to write and publish completely different and skewed values and unworthy values as they really think of them in themselves. Unfortunately, we only became aware of this fact when we got in personal contact with you, and through your helpfulness and openness, we learned inestimable values concerning the Earth human thinking, so that we could only begin to deal with this matter in the correct form. Soon we had to realize that we had been deceived for decades by the conflicting nature of the terrestrial human being, because such conflict is completely strange to us, and we had not had any similar experiences before. So we let ourselves be deceived many times, especially in the earthly human characters. Consider in this regard only once the concerns about the Vites, about Jacob, and finally, in spite of everything, also still about Margaret Rufer, who today in every direction very maliciously in her innermost is against us and accuses us, and especially me in her intellect, her stubbornness, and a rising malicious primitivity. A manifestly malicious assertion, which she spreads just as maliciously, not considering that she only imparts exactly that which is of her own making, which she stubbornly denies in her egoism and know-it-all manner, which is very regrettable. This is what I say in these words, although I am very sorry, but this truth cannot be expressed otherwise. It would be very much to be hoped that she will find the way back to you and thus to the truth. This, however, is very difficult for her, because her unreasonableness and her stubbornness and self-aggrandizement are greater than her will towards the truth and self-cognition. Exactly, however, all these concerns together have persuaded us to orient ourselves very precisely about the real state of affairs. Therefore, we commissioned you to prepare lectures and articles in order to reach the broad mass of the world public. Since we had to recognize through your help that we had let ourselves be foolish for decades by our ignorance of the Earth human, only the possibility of a worldwide test remained open to us. So we had to try to orient ourselves on a path which had to successfully reveal to us the real opinion and attitude of the Earth humans. Since we cannot simply analyze the life forms in their innermost, which I already explained, only the possibility via you remained open to us, namely through lectures and through articles in public publications. That is why I always urged you to do so, because for certain reasons we had to find out the truth before 1977. Through the articles in newspapers and magazines and through several radio and television broadcasts, we succeeded in this test excellently, which alone is on your and your group's merit. Thus, we accessed into all those circles that were important to us, governments which received your remarks with great interest and issued certain decrees in various countries, the broad mass of the public, which was confronted for the first time in real form with this problem, which no ufology groups have achieved to this day, and ufologists, as they call themselves, in a megalomaniacal and erroneous manner. But it is precisely these last ones that were and are of the utmost importance to us, because we had come to know their open opinions. We succeeded excellently with your help and that of your group, only that the result is very devastating. This results in the fact that the Earth human today is not yet capable of dedicating himself or herself to our concerns regarding us and our ship's existence in honest, open, and real form. These so-called ufologists, who were meant to spread the truth and pave the way for the coming of extraterrestrial intelligences, have degraded themselves to primitive semi-scientific sects and spread their unintelligent and dirty nonsense of self-created theories and lies, thereby distancing the Earth humans further and further from the truth on a global level instead of leading them towards the truth. This fact shows that the Earth human does not yet have enough real and truly knowing powers to prepare for the coming of extraterrestrial intelligences by a purposeful elucidation. The realization from this is that the assumed development, with regard to a real elucidation, was only a deception according to purely outwardly falsified facts, and that it consequently results in a new probability calculation on our part that the terrestrial human will presumably only be far enough along in approx. 200 to 300 or even more years to attain the knowledge of the existence of extraterrestrial human life forms, when they begin to travel into space beyond the solar system in manned spaceflight with highly developed technology, or if extraterrestrial intelligences appear in official form on the Earth. This means that the planned official landing shortly before the year 2000 will be virtually impossible, and we will make every effort to ensure that it does not take place. This, in any case, is the first result of the cognitions obtained, for which the Earth human can pay tribute to those malignant forces who dress in names such as Jacob, Bertossi, Ahrens, Duist, and von Kavitsky, but also to many others who are unknown to you by name. It is the fault of all of them that the Earth human must continue to live in consciousness-based and truthful darkness, for it is our decision that you and your group should only be active in truth, spreading an honest, searching and knowing groups, thus in lectures, the dissemination of the writings, and other educational and teaching work, for only in this way will the ancient determinations be fulfilled, that a center be built for it and you trigger a worldwide controversy through which the fact of the Earth visits of extraterrestrial intelligences, and especially our existence and task, become known. The solid core of the group, whom I am to pay loving and united thanks in the name of the High Council and of all our peoples, is so attached to you and us in love and attention, but also to our task, that it will gladly take on all hostility and slander, and will act in this direction and form and also greet our decision. I do not want to miss thanking all the members of the group for their love and faithfulness to the truth and the real teaching, but also for all the love they show you and me. But my thanks also go to all those who are dealing with our concerns and who are only now working their way into your group.
You have spoken an entire novel. Thank you very much, however, for all your kind words and greetings. I will pass them all on very gladly. You know, you have taken a great worry off my shoulders with your remarks. I thought that you would react quite angrily to my decision that I do not want to go public with our concerns anymore. I just do not understand why you did not tell me something earlier about all this, that the lectures and the newspaper articles only served as a test. I do not mean to say at all that I find this unfair. I have just thought about it, and have come to the conclusion that this could have its reason in the fact that I am just still a poor Earth human, and I, probably despite all teachings and despite all experiences in certain influential and pertinent form, would have gone about and done everything if the backgrounds had been known to me. Obviously, I would have done that for sure, because I am simply damned oriented towards wanting to help where no help is useful.
Sure, you think very logically and know yourself very well. Our probability calculations have shown that you would have acted 24% contrary to our wishes, whereby the test would not have succeeded. This percentage is surprisingly low and testifies to your completely logical manner of thinking, but it would have been disturbing.
What do these 24% individuality consist of?
I do not have to explain this to you, because you know the answer yourself.
Then I gave you the answer earlier. Sometimes, and in certain things, I'm a bit sensitive and always hope for the reason of the human being.
Sure, but we too are often subject to the same things.
It is reassuring to know that. Well, girl, look here. This is a letter from my dear friend Herbert. I should give it to you with dear greetings. It is, or would be very nice of you, if you would read it right away, because he is certainly waiting for an answer.
He is a very lovable friend. Gladly, I will read his lines. His words are very kind. I pay him my special and cordial greetings in love and friendship. I feel it very touching, and somehow I feel a slight pain in me that it will never be possible for me to personally thank him. This is also the case with Olga, Margaret, and Amata, Hans, Konrad, and Jacob, and all the others who have gathered around you in love and fidelity. I am especially fond of your children and your wife, whom you love so much, which is unknowable to many. But they do not know your secret, and on the other hand, you do not speak to them about your feelings for your wife. You are very lonely in this respect and do not know how to express yourself, so you often express yourself in harsh words, because otherwise you might cry. Somehow, however, it is good for you, because this manner of yours helps you a lot, so that you can also fulfill your task unswervingly. But be assured that already at the beginning of next week, the whole manner of your wife will step into a new light, whereby she will continue to change for the better. For 2 new good friends of unusual love and honesty will come to you.
You make me curious. Who shall that be then?
Let yourself be surprised, for you will be all the more happier. I just want to tell you so much that it is a female and a male being, whose first names each begin with an M, which corresponds to a pseudonym, but is very true for them, which you will quickly find out.
Well, I am curious. If you say that to me, then it must be 2 extraordinary people. Can you at least tell me where they come from?
They are really 2 very lovable people, 2 who complement each other in partly similar artistic activities. You will see where they come from on Monday morning.
You are quite mysterious. But if you like here, I have a letter from Carlo Dish. He wants an answer to it as soon as possible.
Then I will read it here.
It takes several minutes.
The demands made by Carlo Dish are unfulfillable in every respect. His thinking in these matters simply impossible, and he seems not to be clear about our and your purpose. His statements are completely exaggerated and dangerous. He still has a lot to learn if he wants to work for your group. With regard to his question, I explained last time that he must decide for himself what he wants to do or not do, because we must not influence his decisions. Regarding his statement that he had had contact with an LHOA at the beginning of the 60s, I was only able to find out that at that time there were actually 2 Cassiopean ships with several crew members on the Earth for about 4 months, which had also made impulse telepathic contact with 2 Earth humans. However, all recordings were not transmitted on the home planet, but recorded in the storage devices of the ships for reasons inexplicable to us. Unfortunately, however, our research has now revealed that one of the ships was destroyed during the return flight to the home star in 1962 with the entire crew, whereby all records were also destroyed. The reasons of the destruction are shrouded in darkness and could not be clarified because it took place in hyperspace, which was determined at that time by coordinate impulses. The second ship started from the Earth about 7 years ago because the crew was expeditionarily busy until then. They had, however, no knowledge about the records of the destroyed ship, so also they could convey nothing of reference to this to the homeworld. Unfortunately, this ship did not reach home either, because some influences threw the ship into a foreign dimension when it wanted to break hyperspace. This resulted in the fact that all control devices of the home base, which were coupling remotely with the devices of the ship, suddenly did not pick up any impulses anymore when the breakthrough should have taken place, which indicates with compelling clarity that the ship was thrown into a foreign dimension. What is known about the 2 ships is that the destroyed aircraft was commanded by a male leader named LHOA, while the missing ship was under the command of a certain Anhar. Furthermore, I will try to clarify whether there is anything to be learned about it through any circumstances, which points to a contact with Carlo Dish, but to whom you can now give my answer that his exaggerated wishes and demands are simply completely impossible, and that he himself has to judge what he should do and not do.
Thank you, I will do that. But now another question. Recently, Manara came and visited me quite unexpectedly when I was strolling around in the woods outside. She lent me her radiation gun, with which I shaved away some small trees in a matter of seconds by heat rays. I mean Manara, brought another friend with her, but has not yet transmitted our conversation to me. Will she still do that?
I know that because Manara and her friend Rala the Collector offered to leave tracks of their ships for photographic purposes, which I will do today. In the future, Manara and the others will later transmit your conversations to you, but for your first meeting this will not be the case, for it is of no importance.
Okay, right. But now say, when I was looking for a way to drive to Manara's and Rala's ship tracks by car, I discovered a 3-part track in a remote clearing in the deep reed grass, as I know it from your ship. Have you been there, or perhaps Playa?
No, none of us were there. Manara and Rala had also seen the trail and analyzed it, but they could not produce any results. There must have been a flying apparatus there that was completely foreign to us. We try very hard to clarify the situation. So far, we only know that some intelligences are floating around in your area in apparently negative values and trying to inflict mischief, which is certainly felt by Amada, who has been with you for some time, because she reacts very sensitively to such things. However, in order to be able to give more details, we must first continue to strive for things. For you at any rate, it is recommended that you never come to our contacts without your weapon, and that you carry it on you even if you otherwise roam the terrain. Something is not as it should be, which is also the result of our probability calculations.
Do not worry, I always carry my artillery around with me, at least when I come to contacts. After all, I have a gun license. But in the future, I will strap them on as well. Regarding Amada, however, she actually asked me to ask you about any negative influences that molested her.
I am worried about it and will try to clarify it. But you yourself should be extremely careful and really protect yourself very well, because unfortunately we do not currently have the opportunity to devote ourselves very intensively to only these things. Only next week will we be able to spend the necessary time in larger groups to thoroughly examine the near and far surroundings of your place of residence. Unfortunately, my sister is also traveling with my ship at the moment, which is why I came here with Manara's ship, which also does not have the same technological possibilities as my flying apparatus. But now it is time. I have to go back because Manara needs her ship. Goodbye, and do not forget to pass on my greetings to everyone.
Okay, then goodbye, and likewise my dear greetings.